Hey, you're listening to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, integrative fertility health coach, and lover of all things nature and animals. I'm on a mission to have intentional conversations about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. My mindful guest and I will be talking about struggles, wins, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as we enter motherhood. My background in healthcare has shown me how broken our medical system is. My own struggles to become pregnant has shown the lack of support for mamas to be, the lack of guidance for women to have a nourishing and vibrant pregnancy, the isolation, mom guilt, and all the things we hold after bringing baby earthside. I want this platform to be a place where women can feel connected, safe, and supported to share and hear their stories. A place to use our voice to discuss and advocate about what we need and deserve as mothers. So let's dive in, shall we? Well, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a pharmacist and an integrative fertility health coach. And you might be wondering, why am I hosting this interview on Angela's page? And that's because we decided we would do a reverse interview for my podcast, Rising into Mindful Motherhood. But we thought it would be fun to stream into Angela's pages. So as I'm sure many of you know, Angela Orr is a stress and health management coach. She is certified HeartMath practitioner, a certified stress and well-being assessment provider, executive coach, and a pharmacist of 37 years. And today she'll be sharing with us about HeartMath and heart-centered living and what that means exactly. So we both thought that February would be a really fun month to do this interview because it is about love, it is about the heart, but it's also about it's Heart Health Month as well. So thank you, Angela, for agreeing to do this interview in such a fun way.
Thank you, Katie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So how about you share a little bit with me and the listeners about what led you to becoming a stress and health management coach?
Thank you. Yes, and I've gone through different iterations of that, and I really think that the stress and well-being management is stress and resiliency because I work with a
Mm,
lot of people on resiliency. So my story, to put it succinctly as I can, we all have pivotal points in our life, and we have multiple ones. But one of the most pivotal points for me was in 2013. I was diagnosed, well, 2012 actually, and going into 13, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
mm,
And I owned two pharmacies at the time. Looked like I had everything. If you looked from the outside in, two pharmacies, lots of friends and family, really great life. And stress was literally killing me. I
mm,
ended up very obese. I drank a lot, and now I have breast cancer.
mhm,
Luckily, my surgeon told me I was an uninteresting case. So I was able to be treated just locally within the breast. And,
mhm,
it was resolved fairly quickly. So, and then did the 5 years of medicine. However, life was never the same after that. And I thought, I've got to do something different. I cannot go back to being the same way that I was because it was not getting me to where I wanted to go.
mhm.
And I started a journey, and a journey is not from A to B a straight line. A journey is up and down, forward, backwards, all around. And along that journey, I learned a lot of things about what happened because at the time that I was diagnosed, of course, I didn't realize that it was really the stress that was doing it to me. I've
Mhm.
come to see that as time has gone on. So I sold my first, I had two pharmacies at the time. So I sold one of them that year, to just because this, again, the stress. And then as I continued going on and learning about different modalities and different things, and then even just learning more about myself, because I've always been somebody who likes to develop themselves, learn, reach higher places personally. Um, and doing a lot of the different modalities that I had seen, I realized that I needed to then sell my second pharmacy, which I did a couple years ago. And
Mm.
so I found the courage to sell that so I could really just focus on getting healthier. And then I was like, okay, now that I work for somebody, I don't have so much stress. What do I really want to do? And I thought, I feel like I've been a coach my whole career, which is 38 years this year of being a pharmacist. And I thought what I've learned and what I've done, I can help other people who maybe are in the same situation. And so that's how I ended up where I am.
Wow, that is such an amazing story. And I know I've seen all the things that you've accomplished in your years as a pharmacist, and it's so impressive, all the things that you have done. And you can still really see the passion that you have for it as well, which I feel like, unfortunately, for a lot of newer pharmacists, probably honestly starting shortly after I graduated, I feel like that passion fizzles out a lot faster now, just the way the new retail space is these days.
Yes.
So it's really a nice thing to see that you still do have so much passion. And
I love being a pharmacist. It
yeah,
was the best decision I ever made. And I feel like, you know, yes, it can be very heavy today in
hmm,
healthcare in general for so
oh
many
yeah,
professions, not just ours. But if you look and if you really try to think outside the box, there are so many opportunities. It is
hmm,
just really a great way to help people.
yeah, absolutely. And
But
it
by
goes
not
by
throwing a
so
pill at them.
right.
Because
It
as
goes
I
by
feel
so
like,
fast.
say that again.
It goes by so fast. I have been a pharmacist going on 10 years, and I just don't even know where those 10 years went.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
oh my
Absolutely.
gosh. I'm sorry, what were you saying about
Oh,
a pill?
so I was saying it's just, so as a pharmacist, and I think you do this also in your practice, Katie, now in your coaching, I'm not out there to advocate pills. I'm not out
Mhm.
there to advocate to not take pills.
Mhm.
What I'm saying and what I believe is that what can we do before a pill?
Mhm.
Being a pharmacist for 38 years, I've seen such a revolution in the industry. When you used to go to the doctor with a cold or, congestion or whatever, you would go home with maybe one prescription for a cough thing. Now you go home with six.
Mhm.
The antibiotic, the probiotic, the antifungal, the cough medicine, the Tessalon Pearl, the prednisone, the inhaler. So it's just changed so much.
Mhm.
And my thought is, we definitely need, like, I had to pull muscle and I could hardly move. I was like this. So I got some cyclobenzaprine, Flexeril, a muscle
Mhm.
relaxer, which I was like, oh, godsend. So I don't think that you should not take medicine, but there's the cost of side effects and drug-drug interactions today
Mhm.
is more than drugs themselves.
Yeah.
And I find, especially in the area that I work, which I know we're going to get into, um, that pills are not always that effective, and they're not proven to be.
Mm.
There's scientific evidence now that shows that they're not as effective as we think they are.
Mhm.
And I think you probably find that as far as pillless also, there are other modalities to help women to do what to do what you're coaching them on.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I know I've seen you use the hashtag pillless pharmacist, and I thought that was so clever. I agree with you 100% that the terrain has changed quite significantly in terms of the amount of medications that are prescribed now, and especially, antibiotics is just so extremely overprescribed, and antibiotic resistance is just getting higher. And I think ADHD medications are overprescribed, and that really, really broke my heart, seeing so many kids on that, when I
Yep.
know that there's other options that, could be done. And there's a ton of different things. So I definitely think being aware that there's other modalities, other alternative, complementary methods that could really, really help people. So yeah, tell me more about your healing journey and what that looked like for you.
Thank you. So part of my healing journey, I became a certified life coach
Mhm.
because I went through the program, and then that way I could help others, because when I thought I need to help people. And then through my journey, I also had become familiar with HeartMath, and I became a certified HeartMath practitioner, as well as a certified stress and well-being assessment provider for HeartMath.
Mhm.
HeartMath is HeartMath is a company out of Northern California, and is, I like to say, woo-woo works because it's science-based.
Mhm.
So HeartMath decades ago started, and what they are all about is how can we have a coherent heart, which makes for better health, mentally, physically. And if we can have a coherent heart within ourselves,
Mm.
we can help spread that to others. And how can we then increase the heart of humanity? We all know about, and we've heard about, talking a heart-centered life, and that may be different for different people. For me, a heart-centered life is really just listening to our heart's intuitiveness. And we used to think of the heart as just a pumping organ. All it does is really, help the blood flow. But in science, and what HeartMath has discovered, as well as many other researchers today out within and outside of HeartMath, is that we've discovered that the heart actually sends more information to the brain than the brain via the vagus nerve than the brain sends to the heart.
Mm. Mhm.
So it actually, and there's actually brain-like clusters of cells within the heart. So the heart actually directs much more than we think.
Mhm.
And so much of today's illnesses are thought to be from stress. 80 to 90% of chronic diseases are thought to be from stress.
Mhm.
And bringing that back to heart math, when we can use some simple techniques and advanced technology to really kind of self-regulate our emotions and to really self-regulate our heart. I'm not talking about the beating of it, but I'm talking about the coherence of it, which is to get it into a rhythmic pattern
Mhm.
that influences the chemicals in our body. And how we do that really is through our thoughts and our feelings. It's amazing. People think, well, my thoughts, they're just random and they're just there and it doesn't matter, or they think a thought and they think it's true. Like, oh, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have done that. Like,
Mhm.
but that really sends a really bold message to your body, which in turns really ups the chemicals of stress. And so with heart math, we have documented studies that show if you can get your heart into a coherent place, it changes your biology and physiology. And
Mhm.
what that does is it takes us out of that stress or that fight or flight syndrome. So it's really, as pharmacists, we know about, the autonomic nervous system and the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So it's really about how can we balance those systems within our body.
Mhm.
And when you can balance those, we need cortisone for different, it's a precursor to many good things that we want. But the overproduction of cortisone or cortisol in your body can produce inflammation, which then to me is the basis of so many chronic diseases. The way that we do that through heart math is through some breathing techniques and some technology that we can actually measure the heart rate variability,
Okay.
which is an indication of when you're in a coherent state or not.
Mhm. Okay.
So I don't
So,
need to get into so much science, but it kind of is hard to explain it without that, without that basic understanding.
no, it makes sense, to me at least. It is so similar to a lot of what I'm reading right now in that book I shared with you, Energetic Fertility. She really goes through all the chakras and how that could affect your fertility. And when she talks about the heart chakra, like it sounds exactly like what you are saying, but in kind of like different, like
Mm-hmm.
on a different plane, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, really just connecting to your heart,
Mm-hmm.
listening to your heart, making really heart-centered decisions and things like that. So by tuning in, and I think a lot of it has to do with really cultivating like a mind body connection too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, as I was saying about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, if you think about it, we're born with a negative bias because our whole reason for existence, we want to survive. And when you had, think about out in the pre-K, you'd be running from um, or let's take the example of a gazelle and a zebra. So a zebra is running along, a gazelle's chasing it. Well, when you're in that kind of state, your cortisone is high. You have all of the blood rushing from your body into your limbs so that you can run and get away. And once you get away and the zebra, say, goes back to grazing because it's out of danger now, it naturally has its cortisone go down, and it can then have energy to not
Mhm.
only be on its four legs, but then to digest,
Yep.
to do other things. For a person, the problem is, or for people, we think that our mother-in-law or our boss or that other
Mhm.
driver is the gazelle.
Mhm.
So we're always living at that high state of stress. So
Mhm.
we're always overproducing these chemicals that run rampant through our body that can have a bad effect for us. So, then the question becomes, okay, well, if that happens, how do we shift that? And as you said, that is really a mind-body connection. So with HeartMath is we use some breathing techniques
Mhm.
and like heart activated breathing, which I can go over in a few minutes. And just we have like several different techniques that have shown that if you use it with intention and on a
Mhm.
consistent basis, it can take you out of that stress mode into a more normalized or even neutral, because even neutral is better than negative.
Yep.
We call them regenerating feelings, or so you can't go from sad or frustrated maybe to happy, but you can go to neutral.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's just so interesting that I feel like there's so many different ways to talk about it, the chakras or heart math or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it's all the same.
Yes, yes,
It
it's all
really,
about
really
listening to your
is.
body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how long would you say it took you to get to like this state of, the parasympathetic nervous system in terms of like your own healing?
I still do it today.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
mean,
a practice.
from like when you had that diagnosis, you kind of went through that awareness, I'm guessing, like, okay, I really need to change my life. Like,
Yeah.
when did you really, really start seeing the changes from, just anything that you were implementing?
I would say that within that year after the diagnosis is when I really started to feel better and when I really felt like I was on the right path to natural
Mhm,
healing. I didn't want to take an antidepressant. I
mhm,
wasn't going to take an anti-anxiety. Um, and what I have found is as I really am more focused on my practices, personally, that I'm able to stay in that state longer, not just in the morning when I meditate, but even throughout the day, because,
mhm,
that's really what you want to get to. And what is interesting with heart math, again, scientifically shown that if you can spend at least 15 minutes a day, and it doesn't even have to be contiguous, so it can be 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, that 15 minutes a day on a consistent basis is
mhm,
enough to change your emotional intelligence
mhm.
on a measurable, in a measurable way.
Yeah.
That so it doesn't take a lot of time. And anybody who tells me they don't have 15 minutes, I tell them, well, they need to do 30.
I've heard that before. I love that.
Because you need to take that time. So I started feeling better, but I had, again, it wasn't from A to B a straight line,
Yeah.
but once started working with HeartMath, especially because I had done some other things previous to that, but it didn't have quite the impact that I wanted. And
Mhm.
I've been using HeartMath now. This will be 3 years,
Mhm.
and my
Wow.
life to me has changed totally.
Wow. So yeah, share about that breathing technique because I'm all about really integrating that into my life and also my clients' lives too. Meditation or just really focusing on the breath.
Yeah. So the breathing technique is so the basic one that every other technique is based on is called heart activated breathing. And it's just about slowing your breath down to a place to whatever you're comfortable with, but definitely slowing it down from what you normally do with the intention of having the breath go in and out through your heart. So I actually physically put my hand on my
Mm,
heart when I do that.
okay.
And so if you want to try it with me for a minute,
Sure.
because this is something I use not only during, say, a meditation or whatever, but
Hmm.
it's also something that I use throughout the day
Okay.
because it's a good way for a 1 minute reset to be able to clear out that those emotions and bring in some energy and clarity.
Hmm.
Because if you think about it, when you're really upset or stressed, it's really hard to have a clear mind. So if you just put your hand on your heart and breathe, I start off with 5 in, 5 out. And if you just breathe in 5, and you breathe out 5, but when you breathe in, you just imagine that breath going into your heart. Really have that intention of, I like to see it as a light or um, a brilliance, a shining coming in into my heart, and breathe it out. I breathe in sometimes in and out through my nose. Sometimes I breathe in through my nose and out my mouth. It doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with, but really, really focused on the heart. So I'm going to give us a minute to do that. And anybody else who's with us or watching this, just take a minute right now with us to do this. And I like to tell you that if you have thoughts come, that's okay. Don't judge them. Just notice them and let them go. And as we come back, just just a nice, simple,
Hmm.
simple thing, but it's very different because you're so focused on the heart.
Hmm. Yeah, I like meditations or breathing techniques where you do utilize the visualization aspect as well. And I've never done it specifically with just the heart. Um, so that was nice doing it that way.
Yeah, and as I said, it's just a very nice way to um, use that kind of thing throughout the day. If you're
Hmm.
going to do it for a longer period of time, you can add on the next technique, which is um, where you add in a regenerative feeling or memory,
Hmm.
something positive. So, and it's not thinking about the memory, it's trying to feel the feeling that you had during that time.
Okay.
So doing that for like 5, 10, 15 minutes
Hmm.
can really bring this to the next level.
Yeah.
Just really, and so you'll have to try that, Katie, and let me know how it works. But just again, it's, say if you take your happiest memory, a day when your child was born, and to
Hmm.
and to be there back when that was happening and you saw your child for the first time, and how did that feel? And
Mhm.
really focusing that feeling through your heart area.
Mhm.
It really kind of like just expands it.
Yeah, I love that. And something that's has come up a few times this month for me from a couple of different places is like thinking of a time when you felt safe.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
usually would be a time when you're happy as well. So that just came up in my mind. And one thing that I work on with my clients is visualizing, my fertility clients. What would it feel if you were pregnant right now? If you were 9 months pregnant, or if you were holding your baby for the first time? So really integrating that with like the heart visualization when you do the breathing,
Yep.
I think would be a nice addition. And
Yep.
I tell my clients too, and I have to do this myself because I have a 3-year-old, is I will do this before I even get out of bed, before I even sit up in bed. It's that moment when you're like just waking up, halfway conscious, and you could just put your hand on your heart and do it. You could do
Absolutely.
it as you're settling down into bed, because I know firsthand once the day gets started and you get busy, it's hard to sit yourself down for 15 minutes. But I think alternatively, if you are having a moment in your day where you're getting flustered, which I had that the other day, just taking, you know, 30 seconds, however long you have available to you, to kind of collect yourself and reground yourself really.
I do that sometimes when I go to ladies' room. It's like, oh, okay, now I'm going to
Yeah.
take just a few minutes, just a minute, and do that.
Hmm.
And I just feel like, because when you are in those so the negative emotions, we call them depleting with heart math. So there's depleting emotions and regenerating. And if you think about it, because negative sometimes uh, triggers people. And if you think about depleting, that's exactly what it does. It depletes your energy. It depletes your clarity of thinking. It depletes, just how you feel. So to take yourself out of that depleting and
Hmm.
into more of a regenerating feeling,
Hmm.
can really help to make a huge difference in your day. The
Yeah.
other thing that we have with heart math is technology. So that's what makes, to me, HeartMath so different than others. Not only do we have, like I said, I'm a stress and well-being assessment provider. So we actually have a normalized assessment that I use with clients at the beginning of our time together, middle and end. And we
Hmm.
can actually measure the areas. It was actually developed with HeartMath. They've worked with a lot of healthcare systems and a lot of different systems, so it was developed for them, for their employees, and it worked so well that they decided to launch it, out to everybody. So we can actually see the areas of stress. So it kind of helps with a roadmap, but also with what are your areas of well-being. You don't want
Hmm.
to focus just on the stress. So
Yeah.
we focus on the areas of well-being too, so that we can strengthen those up. So we
Hmm.
can kind of not only decrease the negative, but increase the positive, because by doing that, it kind of like a double whammy effect. And the technology is where HRV, which is, as I said, heart rate variability.
Hmm.
So a lot of people have heard of that now with the new, Aura Ring or the
Hmm.
iFit, or, the watches. They say, oh, we measure heart rate variability, because heart rate variability is an indicator of health.
Yeah.
So your heart rate variability, so it's the timing of beats between your heartbeat. So it's the timing between the heartbeat. So it's not your heart rate, it's the
Hmm.
timing. And there is going to be an inconsistency, because otherwise, if it was always the same, it'd be what, a flat line. So you don't want that. So there is, but if you're really stressed, it's like, on a graph, it would be very jagged and inconsistent, whereas if you're in a coherent state that is more consistent with those timings, is a not much nicer, like peaks and valleys.
Hmm.
And with our technology, we measure like the technology within there just measures at such a different level than a lot of the other um, a lot of the other ones are out there measuring, and it's just another way that stress can actually be physically measured. So that's what I love about HeartMath also, is that we have tools to actually show us what our stress is, so we can see how things are changing as we change.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask about the Aura ring because I have one. So would you say that that's, show it, it might test a little bit differently than what you have, but I guess as long as you're going by the same like baseline.
Yep, that would be good. That, and also with the heart math, is something that you wear just during a session. It's not something
Okay.
that you wear all the time,
Okay.
because again, like the timing of the measurement is in like seconds and milliseconds, whereas
Hmm.
with the Oura and some of the others is hours.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it tells you like after you sleep or something like that.
Yeah, so it
Um,
doesn't, it's not quite as, I mean, I think that as a good baseline, it would be good, but if you
mhm.
really, wanted to know more scientifically,
Yeah.
it just is to me, the device is pretty great. The heart math one.
Hmm.
It's called the inner balance because that's what we're going for, is inner balance.
How do you wear it?
So is something, is it has a ear clip,
Oh,
and you wear it on your ear, like I said, just during a session. I
okay.
didn't have it out. I'm sorry, just a
Oh,
second.
that's okay.
And I can get it to show you. So it pairs to an app on your phone, and the technology is in the app. And this is what turns it on and off and everything. And this is what you would wear on your ear. So you wear
Interesting.
that during a session,
Uh-huh.
and then it goes to you create a free um, heart cloud account so that your
Hmm.
information is stored. And for people who like work with me or work with other heart math practitioners, a client can give me access to their
Hmm.
readings, so I can actually see if they're doing it
Mm-hmm.
and then help them, guide and coach them on, their results and everything.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's really a very unique tool that I like.
Yeah. Could you speak to things that could affect your HRV, like negatively affect? I know for me, if I go to bed late or if maybe I have like a drink that night, I will definitely notice my HRV is lower the next day based off of the Aura ring, of course. But I don't know if there's any similarities there for someone who's using that um,
I
technology.
the heart, so the way that the inner balance works is that it really is all about your heart, and the coherence of your heart, like where that is. So what affects it so I'm just trying to think. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of how to answer that. All of this revolves around epigenetics.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have, and the thing that influences epigenetics, because that's what turns genes on and off, and when they're turned on and off in a manner that is not helpful to you, is when you have a lot of health issues. With the heart rate variability and the heart math, when there are certain things that affect those epigenetics, that to a varying degree.
Mm-hmm.
So the genes are affected by their environment,
Mm-hmm.
and the environment would be food, alcohol, sleep or lack of sleep, those type of things. But the biggest influencer of genetics is thought and
Okay.
feeling.
Mm,
So thoughts and feelings are the biggest contributor to epigenetics.
that's huge because a lot of people would not know that.
Yes, they think that they don't, or they think that, a lot of people think that my thoughts and feelings don't affect me that much, but they do.
Yeah.
And that And that's why with heart math or some of the other things that like what I've done, it's all about emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how do we regulate that self mastery of emotions?
Yeah.
Because if you can control or have that self mastery of your emotions and your thoughts, which lead to emotions,
Mm-hmm.
then you will have much more control over your health.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's huge because you would think that food or stress or other lifestyle decisions would have a greater impact on your epigenetics over thoughts.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that.
You're welcome. And then if you think about it, if somebody is has an environment where there's a lot of alcohol,
Mhm.
a lot of toxins, a lot of, the other things, and I'm not trying to generalize because I know I've been in that category because I'm obese and I used to drink up until 3 years ago. I put down
Mhm.
the alcohol, which has been the best thing I've ever done.
Mhm.
But with those things, it was hard to control my thoughts.
Okay.
Now that I don't have those things in my life, I'm still working on the health issues and the food and that type of thing. That's another journey that
Yeah.
I'm on. But the more I can control it, the easier it is even for that.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that I think that um, those other things do affect, but usually you have a mindset,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
That's such a good point. Like being under the influence, whether it's an upper or a downer, that it would make it harder for you to really work on your
Those
thoughts.
thoughts, it makes it hard to change those thoughts.
That's such a
So
great point.
you have to really start with that
Mhm.
before
Wow.
you can change, you know, when I decided to put down alcohol, I was just like, this is no longer serving me. I had gotten to a point where I feel like truly I was a functional alcoholic. I
Mhm.
drank every day and that 1 o'clock and,
Mm.
this and that stuff. But it was like, I had to say, for me, it was like I kept having those negative thoughts until I put that alcohol down. You know what I mean? But I had to change those thoughts first, like before I could then put it down. And then I
Right.
could change my thoughts even more because I
Mm.
had more freedom there.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah. I working on, that inner critic and your thoughts is a big part of how I help my clients, but I've never necessarily put like this connection that you've just really kind of shared. So it's such a different perspective of looking at it
Yeah.
that your thoughts truly have a greater impact than you really, really think. And that when you are under the influence of drugs, and I think that that could even sometimes be caffeine or maybe even like food addiction because you do get that rush of dopamine and all that stuff.
Oh,
Sugar is, more addictive than cocaine and that
your
that can
phone,
really, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, definitely.
dopamine
So
hit.
many
You get
people.
a dopamine hit every time that you pick it up and look at something. You get a
Yeah.
dopamine hit. It's that,
Hmm.
we've got to almost like train our brains to be on a dopamine detox kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have implemented a new rule for myself. No phone or like no social media and trying no emails too from like 9 at night until 9 in the morning. And I've noticed it's like I feel like my overall stress levels have been better just, seeing something that feels urgent, but it's really not at 7 o'clock in the morning is just not necessary.
No, I do pick up my phone 5:30, 6 in the morning sometime, but just to listen to a meditation. I actually
Hmm.
do a group meditation also at 5 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I go into WhatsApp to go to
Wow.
the link and stuff. Yeah. Um, but I do not get on social media until usually 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I get up
Yeah.
at 5.
It's been nice, and I've been able to I think I've been doing it for, like, a week. So
It's
so,
amazing how something simple like that.
yeah, it really is. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that it really, for me at least, really shifted my perspective on a lot of things. And I'm sure it really clicked with a lot of other people. Um, I would love for you to tell the listeners and myself how, what are the ways that you work with clients in case anyone's interested in learning more?
Absolutely. So I have a one-on-one program that I work with people who really want an intensive. I generally work 6 months with people. If
Mm,
anybody's interested, they can, because I feel like in 3 months it's harder to get because I help people to de-stress and increase that emotional resiliency guaranteed. So in order to do that, to make it a shift for permanent change, because there's always going to be stress around. So I'm not saying you're not going to have stress. That's a lie. But who can you be in spite of all that?
hmm.
And can you still have inner calm? And you can.
Yeah.
Um, I know because I've done it.
Hmm.
And there days that are better than others for me? Absolutely. However, um, it's a journey, but I feel like happy, you know,
Hmm.
happy now. So anyway, so I work one-on-one, and then I also have done women's retreats. I'm planning one, I think, for early next year. And
Oh,
um, then I'm also starting a book club. I also work with Dr. Joe Dispenza. If anybody has heard of him, I work with a lot of his material and his groups and things, been to some retreats for some things. And so I'm starting a book club, a friend and myself in April, to go through the book, Breaking the Habit of Being You.
mm,
So we're going to do
okay.
that on Thursday nights. So if anybody's interested in that, you can contact me on the platform through a message, and I can let you know more about that.
That's a fun idea. I
Yeah.
haven't heard of anyone doing that. That's a really fun idea.
So we're going to go through, there's 14 chapters. So we're going to go through a chapter a week. We're going to do it on Thursday evenings for an
I
hour and
love
a half.
that.
Yeah. And we're going to actually, it's no charge because you really can't charge for Joe Dispenza's work to teach it
Uh-huh.
unless you've been certified, and I've not been yet. Plus, I just want to share. I think it's a great book. It really has changed me, you know, and it really helps. But what's interesting as a pharmacist, Katie, is
Mhm.
a lot of what he talks about is how do we change the chemicals in our body?
Mhm.
The bottom line is and it's all done through thought and
Yeah.
perception.
Mhm.
How do you change the cascade of the cortisol and all the negative stuff to more of the DHEA, the oxytocin, that type of thing.
I love that idea. I may have to borrow that because just as an example, the energetic fertility book I'm reading, I just want to get it into the hands of so many women. And I think that this is a really fun idea to help keep you accountable, but also
Yep,
make it
yep,
enjoyable to read a book.
yep, yep.
Um, I would love to know what is, and if you don't know offhand, you could always share with me after, like, what is your go-to Joe Dispenza like material? Because I've been on his website and I don't know what it is, if it's just me, but I'm very overwhelmed. There's a
Got
lot
a lot of
of options. So I just kind of shied away a little bit. But I know he has a YouTube channel and so many things. So is there one thing that comes to mind where you're like, this is a really good place to start?
I think either Breaking the Habit of Being Take one of his books and read it, but don't
Is
just
that
read
his
it,
book?
implement it. Yeah, that's his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's also another book that he has, Becoming Supernatural, which is good, but also You Are the Placebo.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I do like my books.
So
Um,
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One. And
awesome.
then,
I will
and then he
link.
has another book, Evolve Your Brain. You should join us for the book club.
I know. I will have to think about it. Yeah, I will link those in the show notes and let us know where the audience can connect with you as well.
So Angela Orr Consulting.com, but I'm also on, you can sign up for my newsletter right on my website because I do put out a twice a month
Mm,
newsletter. And then on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. I'm just starting really on YouTube, but I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. So, and we're on these channels with this, or I'm sorry, with this video, but I know on the recording for the podcast it'll be, I think Katie will be putting in my handles for those platforms. So those are a good place to reach me.
Yes, I will be putting those in the show notes. And do you have any final thoughts?
It was just really a lot of fun. I love what I do. I feel like as a pharmacist, again, bringing it back to that, we're uniquely qualified to
Mm-hmm.
really offer people more than just drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And with the healthcare system the way that it is, there are so many of us doing unique things. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that I want to leave people with is, it's been a really hard couple of years for everybody with the, pandemic and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get back to normal and this and that. And my message to you is you don't have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to suffer, and you don't have to be alone, that there are communities out there, whether it's my community, Katie's community, whatever. Reach out. Somebody cares, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't know if you don't reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it could, depending on your circumstances, it could be a really lonely last couple of years, especially when, we're in lockdown and all that. So
Very lonely and
lots of
stressful.
fear.
People are
Mhm.
scared.
Yeah.
People are stressed, and there's no reason to be. There is a different way that you
Hmm.
can be, and it is available to you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was fun. I learned a lot of things. So it was
Great.
a great reverse interview. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much.
I did too, Katie. Okay.